I actually had to clear my throat. I don't know if everyone else did.
I did too.
Okay, good.
So did I.
Oh, okay. Okay. It's It's June 30th, 2016.
This is Idle Thumbs 269. I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Brecken.
And I'm Jake Rodkin.
And we're here in our slightly more completed studio that we mentioned last week.
Like
I bet
40%,
it actually sounds worse than last week because we took all of the unused foam out of this room. So,
Yeah.
But whatever.
We're getting there. You know what? We should actually make use of the Thumbs blog for the first time in forever and put up some progress shots of this office as we
As we build it.
as we put it together. Yeah. At blog.idlethumbs.net.
Oh,
Your
man.
You don't want to
favorite
enter.
blog.
You want to do? We should start like an Instagram now that we're like 3 years behind that. Just
use it for a
to
month
keep
and then
up with
forget
being
about it.
behind in terms of
We can put those on Twitter too, which we actually use.
right. That's true. Yeah.
And our Facebook page, which we also basically use. Never mind, forget that blog. No one cares about that blog. Anyway, hey guys.
Hey,
You ready to talk about some video games?
I am. I heard you guys
yeah.
played. So have you guys heard about the new Hitman campaign came out? I think it's in where the Hitman
this
goes
week,
to a
right?
new
Today?
place. Yeah,
I think
yeah,
today
yeah.
it came out just today.
No, you guys streamed a bunch of Marrakesh. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
we did. I was going to talk about the System Shock thing first,
Oh, fine, fine. I didn't pay attention.
It's fine.
To the stream,
Every
so I wanna hear about
podcast now we start to talk about Hitman and then
have to
rewind,
divert,
and then
and then we'll come back to it. So there's this video game that was just released called System Shock.
Well, a Kickstarter was just released called System Shock Kickstarter, promoting a game called System Shock. So Night Dive Studios, which is the, I think, Washington State-based sort of publisher / studio that has been resurrecting old games and sort of tracking down their rights and making them available for purchase again, is... I can't exactly tell what the structure of the development studio itself is. I guess they seem to be working with like various sort of freelancers, or like they're spinning up maybe a small development arm to... I don't think they have a full-time game development studio, but they're spearheading a project to recreate the original System Shock by Origin Systems, and they've released an actual playable, like what they call, I think, pre-alpha demo that you can get on Steam and GOG and wherever, Humble, I think, and it's to promote their Kickstarter that just went live, which I backed yesterday because the demo is so like
It's like a full
complete.
vertical slice of
it's a vertical slice of the actual beginning of the game, which is really funny. It was weird to play because I hadn't really been thinking about this, but I loaded up the demo. It's free. You just go download it. And I'm in this little room and I'm like, oh, this looks very familiar. And then I realized it's because the only goddamn part of System Shock I've played is that first room like a million times, because every couple years I'm like, I'm going to just finally go and play the original System Shock. And then it's just a couple degrees too
impenetrable?
baroque and impenetrable. Yeah. I've played System Shock 2 like a bunch of times. I've played it all the way through. But the gulf between those two games is massive, just in terms of like technical kind of modernity. I mean, the original System Shock is of the era of like Ultima Underworld. Basically, it's that really. Was the original System Shock actually, was it Origin or was it Looking Glass?
I think it was.
Oh man,
I thought System Shock 1 was Looking Glass, but is it not?
I said Origin, and those two companies were so related. Looking Glass was basically a sort of a spin-off of Origin. But anyway, it was like one of the progenitors.
It's Looking Glass, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, okay. One of the progenitors of the, of course it was, the immersive sim genre. The sort of first-person, highly like simulation-driven, where objects have properties and there are sort of stats and ways you're interacting with the world and solving problems in ways that aren't totally prescribed. And it's, that's where obviously System Shock itself and System Shock 2 and BioShock and Thief and those games.
Dishonored.
Yeah, Dishonored, all sort of through various like evolutionary branches, sort of descended from your Ultima Underworlds and your System Shocks. And so it's really cool to be able to play through. It's, obviously when you redevelop a game, it's a lot more significant than like remastering a film. Like there's not really quite that same equivalent.
Are they running off any original code for this, or is this a full? It's a straight remake. It feels
like a complete. Yeah, I mean, it's a Unity project, and it's
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely just.
They're not secretly also emulating. They're not running DOSBox
No,
frame synced in the background.
You can't hit a button and have it like wipe over with original System Shock graphics. Although that would be incredible.
That would be aesthetically wild, though.
It would also be
System
basically
Shock.
impossible because one of the reasons that the original System Shock is so difficult to play is because it has that Ultima Underworld style sort of interface where everything is just like framed in the screen at the same time. So you're basically playing in a little window in the middle of an already very low resolution environment to begin with, and your various like UI elements are eating up like a third to a half of your total screen space. Anyway, I'm going on too long about this, but the point is just it's really impressive, especially for something that is just being kickstarted now. I mean, I know everyone, probably including myself, has sort of hit Kickstarter fatigue a while ago at this point, but this feels like they've figured out basically how to do this. They just need to make more of it, which is kind of where you want to be in terms of, at this point, I think, backing a project like that. Mm-hmm. So whatever, I put my money into it, and we'll see how it goes. But I was impressed by the demo.
Were you able to get farther in this demo than you were in the original System Shock?
I think I probably was. I mean, the demo just hard ends at a certain point. There was one really great moment, actually, that I want to specifically call out, because it's the kind of thing that would have been, I think, is the kind of experience that at this point is probably only possible to have in the original System Shock if you already played the game when it came out and were able to sort of experience it in the like suspension of disbelief, like immersion zone that would have been contemporary to its release. There's a moment in this demo where you walk into a room and some music kicks in and you are looking out the window of this space station and you see, I don't know if it's Saturn or just another ringed planet, but you see this huge planet taking up like almost half of the sort of porthole or the window, and your ship itself is rotating, and so the entirety of space is kind of rotating slowly, and the planet is slowly leaving your view. And I just sat there for like 5 minutes until the music track that kicked in ended, and the planet was almost completely occluded. And it, that's the kind of thing that when you play a game like this when it first comes out, because it feels so amazing visually relative to things that are out there, like you can put yourself in that zone, not just visually, but just over the whole immersive sort of sensation. But now when you go back and play System Shock, if you don't already have that nostalgia built in, it's kind of like before the technological threshold that allows you to still have that newly. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? At least in a 3D game.
Right.
And so it was cool having that experience and being like, oh, wow, that's actually a really breathtaking moment.
That's funny because that probably does let you take your mind and transport it back to, I understand now how people perceived the low-res version of this in one.
And some games hold up to that better, right? Like I've talked about on this podcast before how I played the original Legend of Zelda, like, sometime during the time when Idle Thumbs, the podcast, existed, right? So sometime in the last 8 years. Oof, gross. And I remember when I didn't play it when I was growing up, maybe at friends' houses for a couple of minutes, but that was still totally able to give me this like sort of tingly experience of like going into the dungeon and hearing the music and being like, oh wow, this is actually really, but because the graphics weren't trying to stretch for something that they couldn't achieve.
The weakest link in games, I think, is early 3D games that were not embracing the fact that they were early 3D games and were trying.
Which almost none were.
Yeah, no, I mean, like Interstate 76, some parts of Grim Fandango hold up, I think. But,
those are rare exceptions.
But a lot of those, like, the games of the you won't believe this is an actual 3D render era, where then now you look at it now and go, yeah, we can very much believe that that's what this is.
Well, and the thing, and like, Ultima Underworld and System Shock were never even really those games to begin with, and
but
so
they were
now
like
it's
it was
like,
a big overreach, or a big.
they were more impressive because of the totality of all the systems interacting, but
Yes.
I don't think visually those games were ever the most amazing thing around, because Doom was a contemporary to these games, and
I thought these had to be at least a little bit post Doom. Are these like Doom and Duke engine style, like faux 3D? I guess they must be.
I feel like System Shock 1 was, right?
Yeah.
Man, I feel like by
But
2
2 had a polygon in it.
2
like,
was in like 1999. And
Yeah,
was
2 was
full-on
like
Quake
Voodoo 2,
era
like,
polygon, or post Quake, really.
Yeah.
Half-Life era.
Doom 1 is another game that does actually hold up aesthetically forever because
It totally does.
because
That's
the
why I
color
compare
the color
it.
design is great. Yeah, but and just a lot of the visual design in that game.
But
is
System
good.
Shock 1 was 1994.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it was right in that, basically right in that zone.
It was in a time when I would have never known about it. I just was not in tune with those games at that time.
Oh yeah, I think it was hard to be when you were below a certain age, because
Yeah.
how
Like I had Doom because everyone had Doom,
Right, exactly,
but
yeah.
like friends my age were 13 and would pirate Doom floppy disks, but no one came to junior high and was like, check out this shit, an immersive sim. I would not have known what to do.
that
with
word
it.
didn't exist even. That was
No,
a post,
I know,
that
yeah.
was like
Yeah.
Kieran Gillen or someone
Yeah.
coined retroactively applied term.
The same, yeah. Some kid brings in a bunch of like Mortal Kombat cheat codes, and then also brings in a copy of System Shock 2. Those did not coexist in my brain at the time
Yeah, for sure. Me too.
because I was a baby.
Yeah. The only way I would have been exposed to that game would have been whether the box art caught my eye at like a, God, what was the egghead?
Egghead discount software.
Yeah, if I walked through an egghead and saw a cool
Electronic
box, I would have
boutique.
maybe bought it just
Yeah.
because the box looked cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the only.
Yeah, I had subscriptions to both for some reason.
Or downloaded the demo from FilePlanet.
No way. FilePlanet's
way too-
FilePlanet's at
I
least
guess-
3 years later.
Yeah.
Sorry, 3 years later. Yeah.
You would have maybe if you'd pulled it off CompuServe or something.
Yeah.
I had subscriptions to both PC Gamer and Computer Gaming World somehow, which I now bet.
So you could have had it on a demo
It just
disc.
occurred to me,
Yeah.
actually. I basically have wondered for my entire life why I had those magazine subscriptions.
They were probably free, right?
I think they were, but
Sure.
I wonder if I got them through like my dad's frequent flyer miles. Because now I subscribe to magazines using frequent flyer miles, and I know that's a thing that has existed since the 90s.
It's got to either be that or you filled out a card that
Yeah.
came with your CD-ROM drive.
that
Yeah.
that's a good idea too. That could totally be the reason.
That's a good idea.
Oh, man,
I gotta go home and do that. Yeah.
CD-ROM drives.
No, I bet you're totally right. But anyway, that would have been another place I would have theoretically learned about that, although I could have also just skipped that page
Right.
because it looked too complicated.
Probably. Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, System Shock, they've got a Kickstarter. It's Night Dive Studios, and even whether you back it or not, there's a demo you can play for free, which is
It's up on Steam already, right? The demo
yeah,
is?
demo's up on Steam. I think it's also on GOG and Humble
FilePlanet.
and FilePlanet.
God, what if they released the demo for that on FilePlanet?
Yeah.
That would have been very good.
Yeah. If Scary's Quakeholio links to a FilePlanet download for System Shock, the demo today, I
Yeah.
would be really happy.
It's on Shack Files. What the
Yeah.
hell? I don't
File
even know
Shack?
File Shack.
File
Yeah,
Shack's gone.
FileShack and FilePlanet both hosting this demo. Probably not.
Get it with your Mercury subscription. All right. So
So speaking of new PC games, Hitman.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Nick came over on
Hitman 2016.
Hitman.
God,
2016.
I had the experience of trying to Google this game
Isn't it
for the
up a pain
first
in the
time. It
ass?
is it's actually impossible.
Yeah.
Even if you Google Hitman 2016, not
I
much
just wrote
pops
down.
up.
I accidentally
There
just
isn't
wrote
that
down
much.
Hitman 2026. So that's the next episode.
That would be
That's
amazing if it was
probably-
revealed that
yeah.
Hitman 2016 is actually the title of the game referring to
Right.
its setting, and the next Hitman game
Yeah.
is just another year in the near future. I think Hitman 2016 is actually stupidly set in 2019.
Yeah, somebody told us that. Yeah,
Yeah, someone on the stream told us that. I think.
yeah.
Ugh.
Barf. Anyway, so Nick came over on Sunday, and we played Hitman 2016 : Hitman 2019, and we played Escalation Missions on Marrakesh, the newest Hitman sort of setting that we talked about last week. And it was rad.
So you guys had a good time with this because I know all comments so far on this podcast about Marrakesh have been a little bit cool compared to the previous two, even maybe. I know, like
Yeah.
when you dipped your toe in, at least Chris, a couple weeks ago, you were like, "Eh."
Yeah, it was really cool, but it was probably it's the one that's held up least in my memory, just in terms of sort of overall Hitman level construction from this current Hitman release. Yeah, but it's still good. But I would say, at least for me, and I don't know, Nick, you can tell me what you think about this. Like my excitement over the stream we did, particularly the final escalation mission, and to remind people, escalation missions are linked series of 3 to 5 missions, all played on the same level, that start by giving you one single objective and then progressively adding another condition you need to fulfill. So by the 5th one, there are 5 things you have to be doing, whether they're like killing a person or like using a certain weapon or wearing a certain outfit or whatever. And some of those conditions actually include multiple like things to fulfill. So they get increasingly difficult because you have to fit into this narrower and narrower box. Anyway, the thing that was so fun about it for me was that by the final one, it pushed us and mainly you, because you're the one who completed it successfully, into the most like professional, unforgiving possible Hitman version you could imagine.
Yeah, that particular like level of escalation basically forced me to play in a way that I would never play.
So what was what were the requirements in escalation level 5?
Level 5 was ridiculous.
Can you remember what they were starting from 1?
Yeah, so starting from 1, it was
it was already difficult, right?
Right, yeah. So starting from 1, light a particular man on fire.
Okay.
Well, yeah. But assassinate this guy via fire, specifically.
Right. But not an explosion. Literally just light him on fire.
As we learned from a failed attempt.
Right.
Okay.
So there was that. And then and then like nearby there was a safe.
So do you have to light the guy on
safe.
fire and then also break into the safe? Is that level 2, or do they swap things out?
No,
like,
they're additive.
They're additive, and you can go in any order eventually. You know,
okay, but it is sort of like
that.
a weird Hitman game of Simon, where it's like light the guy on fire. Okay, light the guy on fire, then break into the safe.
Yep.
Okay.
And yeah, what's interesting is that
it escalates.
Yeah, as it's escalating, you sort of like you have your route. That for maybe like the first 2 escalations, you go, okay, this is kind of the way that I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, you're just forced to change it up because you realize like, oh no, there's no way. I don't want this guy walking into this guy.
Or because one of the later requirements actually makes your route invalid because you kill a guy a way that now you're not allowed to anymore, for instance, or something. Yeah.
Yeah. The 3rd tier was so light the guy on fire, open the safe, and then kill another guy, but kill him via a shotgun blast, and then hide him in a very particular box. Not any box.
Okay.
Just put him in this one box that is also nearby like 6 guards. And then the 4th tier was do all of that, and then
and there's increased camera security. And if you're spotted by any camera, you have 2 minutes, no matter where you are on the map, you have only 2 minutes to destroy video evidence that can only be destroyed in the like video
in the security room,
inside of a armed consulate, and then
in the by far the most heavily guarded, heavily trafficked area on the level.
And then the 5th tier was do all of that. However, you can't disguise yourself at all. You are just Mr.
Or you have to
Hitman.
be the Hitman.
You're just Hitman.
But technically, you have to never change. So whatever outfit you load the map into you can never change.
So you could spawn in like a clown costume.
If you had
I guess we could have done that.
Whatever you unlocked.
If you had unlocked the ability to do that, yes, we had not.
So
all we had unlocked was Hitman suit and stylish summer suit, which is just as conspicuous as Hitman.
Did you guys play as Hitman or as stylish Summerman?
We were
stylish Summerman because we were drinking Arnold Palmer's. And
no. That's also the correct guy you want to go through this like hell.
Yeah. It was absolutely brutal. I can't.
So wait, what is stylish summer? Is it like Hawaiian shirt? Is it like Don Draper in Hawaii?
Linen. No. It's like linen. It's like a nice linen suit that a Southern gentleman would wear at like the Kentucky Derby.
So you were dressed as John Hammond.
Yeah.
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah.
With a hat.
Yeah.
And,
and there was a bundle of cables that we had to follow to a generator at one point, so it was fine. But it was really interesting. I haven't actually forced myself to play in that way. It was really nice to have that experience. But then also I enjoyed
I think you completed it on your second attempt.
Yeah, I think so. I did check the stream and realized that God, we did that pretty quickly.
Because it required such diligence and confidence and care that it actually made you play better
Yeah.
than had you not. Even though it was harder, it was like a more a more encouraging overall atmosphere for what you were doing. I mean, there was zero room for error at all. I think that you had no alerts the entire time.
Yeah.
You never triggered like
Jesus.
a
But
full...
here's another thing. The tier before that, there was the Hammer Time run. And what's interesting about a Hammer Time run,
What does that even mean?
Well, so I started off the mission, and there was just a particular checkpoint that has like 2 guards, and then there's a hammer on the table, and I just happened to pick the hammer up on that particular
he just
run.
grabbed it
and then
fucking Last of Us style.
just sort of
as
like
he was running
whoop,
by it,
yeah,
he just like
just-
whoop,
Yeah,
stuck his
right,
hand out
yeah.
and grabbed it.
And
It
then-
was really funny.
Yeah, and then I immediately ran smack dab into a security camera, which then triggered the 2-minute countdown, and
Right.
I was just it seemed like there was no way I was going to make it. Chris was like, "Oh, this is a blown run. Forget it. Just reload. This is stupid." And I was like, I got this hammer. And so I just sprinted through basically the entire length of like the level that we had like, constructed this like perfect run of like, okay, now I carefully do this. I just sprinted through the whole thing. And every time I hit a guy, I just hit him over the head with the hammer.
It's crazy.
And it worked. And we got into the consulate. And there were like 2 guys, and I was just like doink doink, and then like walked in, and there was like the security guy who was like in front of the bank of consoles, and I just hit him on the head with a hammer. And then there was a girl who saw me, and I just hit her on the head with the hammer. And Chris was like, "You didn't need to hit that girl," and I was like, "Oh, that's fine." And so then I finally like delete the evidence. But so and then I died. But,
There's some other evidence in your wake.
Right, yeah. But the interesting thing about that, though, that I realized after the fact is that the only reason that I even bothered to do that is because, like normally, if you're just playing through like the mission, you don't need to care about the security cameras, and like the only reason that I was like caused to make that insane effort is that because of that particular demand. Which is why those missions are really good.
That's true. So you actually basically back to back had the most atypical Hitman runs imaginable. One, the sort of least cautious, most just like caution to the wind version of it, which was all surprisingly successful given the circumstances.
Yeah.
Given it was
And
a guy
then-
sprinting through a consulate, hitting people in the head with a hammer. Yeah.
I mean, the funniest part about it, this is impossible to like convey, so you should actually go watch it. It's
We
on our
should pull
YouTube.
that clip out too, maybe.
Yeah, just the hammer run is actually worth pulling out, because the thing that was so goddamn funny about it, you can watch it on youtube.com/idlevideos, was that when you were crouched for so much of the time until you actually eventually broke out into the full run. And
That's
so
true.
when you passed by the hammer, you're sort of crouching under it, and you sort of reached up and snagged it just on your way. And then the first guy you killed with a hammer also was basically an offhand maneuver. It was just like, oh, whoops, guy, bonk. Continue crouching. Like it was so funny.
Yeah.
And
It was like a cartoon. It was just like watching like, like a wacky like floppy guy with a hammer just kind of and then you could just imagine the sort of bonk like in bold face like
Right.
Yeah.
So we should maybe actually pull out
Batman 66 cards, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the whole video is at least as of the time of recording is the featured video on youtube.com/idlevideos, and it's shorter than some of our longer streams. And it's I think really
So
I think it's a really good
watching
stream.
a cartoon people with a hammer and then do like the most masterful, precise
Yeah.
Hitman run of all
It
time.
was so good. It was so much fun. It was one of the best examples I think we've had in a stream so far of like Nick and I cooperating strategically, and then chat adding
Yeah, that's good.
strategic assistance. It was a really good sort of triumvirate.
So you
of
feel like
advice.
internalization truly hit 100%.
It did, and we completely dropped the ball on the internalization meter, even though
I
this
know we did.
was the truest expression of internalization.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the next stream will start at 100 and then immediately fall.
And then
just
decrease.
completely be destroyed.
Well, Nick, you were planning on doing another Dark Souls stream this week, right?
Yeah, I guess the day that this podcast is released, that night I will be streaming.
That is Thursday. Today,
Yes.
July 30th.
At 7:00 Pacific
Okay.
is when I will do that.
We'll put that on Twitter and put an announcement on the Twitch channel and in the Idle Thumbs streams thread in the forums.
Yep.
Cool.
Should we take a break?
Yeah.
Let's take a break.
Cool.
This episode of Idle Thumbs is brought to you by the Idle Thumbs Network.
Hey, it's us.
Yeah, it's us and other people. We have a number of podcasts on our site at idlethumbs.net/shows, including Idle Weekend, which is hosted by Rob Zachney and Danielle Riendo. Their most recent episode, at least at the time this is being recorded, was their 2016 halftime show, where they talked about the games and TV shows that they've enjoyed the most so far, just in this first half of the year. So that was kind of a fun roundup from them. And I think I know that they restrained themselves from too much discussion of The Witcher and The Americans, their two banner obsessions. So that was a fun one. That's at idleweekend.net. There's also the Idle Book Club, which I host along with Sarah Argadale, and we are currently reading The Sympathizer by Viet Thanh Nguyen. It's a really cool, sort of darkly comic Vietnam War sort of spy thriller thing. It's really good. It's really written in a very wry style, and it's really fun. I mean, fun. It's horrible. I mean, it's it's about a terrible chapter in history, but
a thrilling read.
Yeah, but it's like I say, sort of a darkly comic take on it. That's I think really clever and good. It's anyway called The Sympathizer. That's the Idle Book Club, which you can find at idlebookclub.com. That next episode should be coming out soon.
Designer Notes?
Designer Notes, yeah.
Yeah, Designer Notes is a game developer interview podcast, super long-form interviews. It's hosted by Soren Johnson of Off-World Trading Company and Civ 4. This month, he interviewed Lewis Castle.
Classic guy.
Yeah, he was a co-founder of Westwood Studios, who made Command and Conquer and the Kyrandia adventure games.
And the Blade Runner adventure game.
And the Blade Runner adventure game, a bunch of stuff. Also, Dune 2, which was one of the early standard setters for real-time strategy games. And I don't know, it's got good stuff in it. They talk about Dune 1 to Dune 2, which is a total interesting Westwood transition, because Dune 1 is way more of an adventure game, and then Dune 2 is suddenly basically a proto Command and Conquer. So hearing the story behind that is cool. And also, we have Terminal 7, a Netrunner podcast about the card game Netrunner, hosted by Nels Anderson. I have no idea anything about Netrunner, but people
but people like it.
People like that podcast.
Tournaments and
so
stuff, and it's cool.
Go listen to that also. Anyway, we got good stuff. idlethumbs.net/shows.
Thanks, Idle Thumbs.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks, Nick.
Video game.
Thanks, Nick.
Are we back?
Why not? Hi, Chris.
All right, I guess we're back. All right, back.
Welcome back.
Thanks, Jake. I played Overland,
Oh.
the new game from Finji, which I think until we talked about this game, right? We talked about
it in the context of early
model.
access, but not about the game so much. Yeah.
I think until around that time, I may have mentioned this then, but I think until around then, I don't even think I realized this game was a sort of XCOM-like tactical strategy game, turn-based tactics game, basically, because the screenshots just look sort of almost like a sort of Kentucky Route Zero-esque.
Yeah, that's what
It looks like it might be a sort of almost a grid-based semi-procedural adventure game, but it's totally an XCOM.
Yeah,
right?
it's completely that. Yeah, I mean it's
of that school at least.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. So Overland is a game that is played on a combination of a world map, like a sort of a highway map that you drive along, and then in a car that you acquire, you basically are, every time you move your car, you're deciding to go between two different tactical battles, and they're rated by whether they're sort of fairly easy, fairly difficult, extremely challenging, whatever. And then they each have more likely rewards, right? So one of them might say, there's someone stranded here. This is a fairly easy encounter. The other one might say, lots of useful items here. This is fairly difficult. I don't remember all the wording they use, but that's the gist of it. And you play through these until you reach the end of the given highway section, and then it keeps going. This is a sort of Mad Max-ish, I guess, post-apocalyptic sort of scenario, but there's weird, crazy bug monster things that attack you. and it is really hard. There's like two takeaways for me from playing Overland so far. One is that it's extremely difficult, even though the combat model is very simple. Like, at least the amount that I've played so far, which I've not played far, it's too difficult for me to get far enough to know if this holds up. But there's like easy enemies that die in one hit, and there's hard enemies that die in 2 hits so far. That's like the breadth of the enemy design that I've currently encountered, although I wouldn't be at all surprised if that continues ratcheting up. But it's not like you're dealing with lots of different weapon loadouts. Like, you just find improvised weapons on the ground, rocks and sticks and pipes and stuff. And you're not like equipping your guys with complex armor, and it's very much scavenger driven, and very, very difficult. And so there's like the interesting combination of sort of simplicity of design, but also unforgiving level of difficulty. And then also the other big takeaway for me, and obviously this game is in an alpha state right now, so this isn't a criticism of the game per se, but man, it is a reminder, as is the new XCOM game, how much these games just are their UI. A sort of tactical, turn-based grid game, even one like this, which is so stripped down relative to something like XCOM in terms of the number of different outfit options you have and sort of actions you can take. It's so much small. The number of those options is so much smaller than it is XCOM, and yet it's still, the entire experience is a complete, is entirely subservient to your ability to like intuitively grasp the UI elements and what all your clicks are doing. And it is the ultimate example of the kind of thing where as a player, you're like, why isn't this more obvious? And then as a developer, your entire life and job is just like trying to figure out how to make the version of this that will be intuitive and obvious and flow well for everybody. And it is one of the weirdest, most like secretly difficult things in games that I suspect everyone who plays games, that is the thing they would think would be easier than it is, because even as a game developer, when I play this game, I'm like, why don't they just make this thing really obvious? And it's like, because the version of it that's obvious to everyone is like impossible to come up with. And so I constantly find myself misclicking because I'm misinterpreting what something looks like, and I'll move to a space instead of I thought I was clicking on an action on the space I already was, and just things like that. Again, this game is in alpha. I'm not concerned about it for like the long run. That's exactly why they're doing this alpha strategy that they're doing. Again, the game is Overland, which they've offered several like buy-in waves of, where they sell several hundred keys at a time, letting people in on a limited basis, which I think is really smart. And I'm sure they're gathering all kinds of player behavior and feedback, and will improve that stuff.
Oh yeah, Adam Saltzman is the guy who's making this. He made Cannibalt. He's Fingy Games. I follow him on Twitter, and he posted what looked like an Excel spreadsheet of a calendar, and it was just UI, and him and it just said obviously as the only text on it, which is like, well, obviously the next big rev of this is going to be taking all of this feedback, it sounds like, and doing a huge UI and Overland overhaul.
Yep. Yeah, it's so difficult. I remember playing the first new XCOM game, the first Firaxis XCOM game, which I think has quite good UI overall, and obviously they have a huge amount of resources as a AAA studio and have been making UI-driven strategy games for their entire existence by way of Civilization. And even then, in that game, there are things where I'm like, I wish they had just streamlined this a little bit. And it's like such a shit thing.
It's a sentence that's impossible. As a developer, they're like, well, the reason we didn't is because this insane, you're just like opening up a thing that then turns out to be an impossibly infinite origami piece. You thought it was a little triangle, but when you unfold it once, it unfolds into like 30 square feet of paper or something. And you're like, oh, I see why this is packed down the way it is. But also... that doesn't mean that a developer shouldn't then repack it a different way.
So I understand that all. But can't I just press this button?
Exactly.
To just, skip to the thing?
I mean, at a certain point as a developer, you have to go, maybe you should have to do that, and that makes you have to reassess a huge paradigm that you've built. But like,
but it's also really difficult to know if are all players going to come to that same.
The moment you give that feedback, another guy, even in the same playtest room, will be like, "Well, I wasn't a problem for me. I did a great job," and then everyone on the developer team goes, "Shit, that guy said it was good."
Yeah.
Oh, it's so hard. I played a few of the alphas of Off-World Trading Company and then played the final version of it. And man, that is another game. It's a real-time strategy game that's also an economic simulator. That's another game that lives or dies by its UI. And watching the UI of that game change was fascinating. Actually, there's a Designer Notes. I think the Designer Notes podcast. There's Soren Johnson did one about Off-World Trading Company where he talks about the development of that game. And if you're interested in how heavy UI, heavy systems-based games get pared down, he talks about the entire process of assumptions they had and cuts they made and ways that they just like pared that game down and redid huge pieces of the UI and of the user experience to end up with what they shipped. And it's a great conversation to listen to hear that process. Like I thought it was Soren's a guy who really, really cleanly documents his entire game design process, and he posts a lot of it to his website. But I think it sounded like because of that and just his memory as a designer, he was able to go back and really cleanly remember what they did and why they did it and how they evolved Off-World Trading Company. Even if you haven't played that game, he does a great job of explaining, we had this system in, and then because of these things, we changed it to this and this, and it's good. Anyway, idlethumbs.net.
/shows.
Do you think that Overland is incredibly difficult right now because it is in an early release alpha and they're deliberately it seems like I remember when Clay put out Invisible Ink, which was their sort of espionage XCOM influenced game. It was the difficulty was just turned up entirely, and the early Don't Starve alphas were like that as well because one, they wanted to test the systems at their most extreme, and two, Return of the Sirens, and two, I think that they said that it means people can get more time out of an early access game if you're not just blasting through it and going, okay, I saw it because I got through some a really easy version of when Overland ships, and if it has a campaign, I imagine that it will not be as brutal out of the gate. Does that seem true to you?
Yeah, that seems likely. I also have a suspicion that with a game like this, there's just a natural tendency
to wreck
difficulty
people
early.
Yeah.
Well, also because you're probably testing it yourself up to that point, right? Where you've just mastered the systems to the extent that a normal person who has no idea.
You know your way around the rough edges.
Yeah.
All of these systems are at their roughest. They're all rougher than they will be in the future, which means any player who gets stuck on any of those rough there are more rough edges to theoretically get stuck on, and it's hard to disassociate the intentional quote difficulty
versus
from
is it just obtuse and
the
weird
difficulty of playing the thing in the first place.
Yep.
And sometimes those distinctions are very blurry, but it's clearly a promising baseline to build on, and it looks really cool. And there's this awesome thing that makes me just as a game developer, I'm just this is just the most awesome touch when you go to a new section of the map of there's the world map, which is the sort of sub world map, which is the little section of highway you're on, but then there's also just a map of the entire United States divided into I think 4 just big vertical stripes, essentially, each of which has its own name. And when you go to one of those, you get this great little tiny interstitial scene of your car driving away on the highway, and then the U.S. map is just overlaid in just white line art superimposed on top. And so it looks so awesome. It's so stylish and cool, and just made me want to be I just want to make something that looks like this.
It looks so cool. It looks really modern graphic designy, but it's also really evocative of an old educational travel film or something like that. Is what it at least the imagery I've seen of it.
Color palette,
yeah. And just the just white line art projected over a moving footage of the United States is that just it would then places where oil is refined would then pop up on that map if you were watching it in school or something.
Yeah, it's cool. So the game is Overland by Finji, and I don't know what their schedule is for when they sell early access keys. I got mine through just the widget on their website a couple weeks ago. But it's cool.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do some reader mail?
Yeah, let's do some reader mail. All right.
Oh, we went really quickly to mention one hilarious thing, which is Doom 2016. There's an update coming out, I think, this week.
It's coming out the day this podcast is coming out.
It's out today.
The 30th of June.
I don't know much about it other than what I saw tweeted, but they're including a new user setting to let you center visualize all of your weapons to just go into 100% classic Doom Wolfenstein Quake 1 mode. But it seems like, I mean, it must be some weird additive offset to the existing animations, or they reanimated them. I don't know, but it has all of the nice fidelity of this Doom weapon hands, and then the pose is just right down the middle of the camera. It looks really good and funny. Mm-hmm. Further leaning into, I guess this is what Doom is now. Anyway,
really good.
That was a tiny dot, but if you're looking for some reason for an excuse to open Doom again, wait till it updates on Steam in the next couple days or today.
And then put your gun in the middle.
And then put your gun in the middle of the screen and laugh at it for a minute. That's all.
It was weird seeing that in the context of a high fidelity modern first person shooter because it looks weird. I mean, it totally doesn't look weird at all when you look at it in those original games.
Yeah,
but it
looks so strange now.
Because you see the guy do his whole constant real animation,
and then he goes whoop and just puts it right in the middle.
And it's like, how would you hold that?
Yeah, you could unlock the original Quake 1 rocket launcher as a Team Fortress weapon for the soldier in TF2, and it also center mounts.
What?
So all the other guns are just our side view. Like,
I never saw that.
Oh yeah, if you get the Quake 1 rocket launcher, it goes boop and just pops into the dead center of the screen, and it looks like you're playing TFC. Like that's or Quake World Team Fortress.
It's really good.
Yeah.
That
was clearly when Team Fortress 2 was deep into its current decadent phase. But yeah, Doom went there within weeks of shipping, apparently. Correctly.
Months anyway.
Whatever.
All right. Jake Rodkin writes, Hat Baron epilogue.
Oh, should I preface this Hat Baron epilogue?
Sure.
The Hat Baron. Over like years of this podcast, a reader who goes by the name Captain Invictus, who Chris and I first encountered on the Something Awful forums, has been sending us emails about the Valve, about the Steam economy, starting off with Team Fortress 2 stuff, then getting into Dota. And one of the characters who kept emerging in this crazy saga of the Team Fortress Hat Barons was this guy named Rob, who started off as the most reputable Steam item salesman of all time, but then at one point decided to just say fuck it and went rogue. And Rob, if you remember from all these previous emails, started becoming a fence for the mob and managing all sorts of crazy items, just flipping stuff and basically being a fence and money launderer for item dupers and all this other crazy shit. Then at a certain point, this guy got into cryptocurrency and on his way out just took $10,000 from some item trader who he had agreed to hold for him and then was like, no one's going to come after you. And he just quit Steam and quit the Steam economy and became a Bitcoin trader. But Captain So
if you want to re-listen to this whole thing, it's on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/idlevideos. It was compiled and posted up there by Johnny Driggs, who's the person who annotates and posts all of our episodes to YouTube generally.
Yes, and that's got the whole Hat Baron saga up until this point. But Captain Invictus wrote us back. Captain Invictus writes, all right, well, here's the epilogue to the Rob saga. Ever since Rob quit his illicit hat fencing gig and sailed off into the great unknown with 10 grand of that account hijacker's money, he has been practicing his artistic skills and was working on some skins for Counter-Strike Global Offensive.
Okay.
Because, the Counter-Strike CS gun skins are that's the new shit. So I guess this guy could not resist being pulled back in by this. He managed to get a handful in, and almost immediately he started seeing serious returns. From his first skin, he was pulling in tens of thousands of dollars a month in royalties. And then as he got more and more skins in, the combined royalties started piling up until he became a multi-millionaire within the span of a year and a half.
What?
Oh my God.
Valve provides around 25 to 30% of total sales in royalties royalties to the creators of an item from all store and marketplace sales, and with over 500,000 daily unique players, CSGO is in a prime place for artists with good gun fashion sense to get their designs in and make some serious cash. God, if that guy's made $1 million and Valve gives 25 to 30% of that, that means off this guy's gun skins alone, Valve has made
$3 to $6
million.
Yeah.
So yeah, they can get their designs in and make some serious cash. A lot are already doing it though, and I've seen plenty of outstanding ones that they've not even considered, so competition is rough. I invite anyone with a better understanding of the CSGO and gun and knife economy to try and explain that mess with, quote, float values and fractional shades of a knife's color being the difference between an $80 knife and a $600 one, among other things. Things were so much simpler.
$600 knife.
Things were so much simpler when it was all about TF2 hats and just whether they were on fire or not. So the epilogue of that guy who went from being a super reputable trader to then scamming everyone out of thousands of dollars and leaving is now he's a gun skin millionaire.
God, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Did you see that Valve is being sued for CSGO right now by some guy? It's just, I don't know how legitimate this lawsuit is or not, but yeah, it made some headlines. A Counter-Strike player files suit against Valve over illegal gambling surrounding CSGO. And he's charging that Valve knowingly allowed and has been complicit in creating, sustaining, and facilitating a market where players and third parties trade weapon skins like casino chips. So
crazy.
This is this is becoming a thing.
So these are tradable after you buy them?
They must be.
Yeah, $2 billion in skins. That's the market?
Yeah, the CS.
Oh my God.
The CS like gun and does CS have keys? I don't know. I want to know more about CSGO. I know though that like Counter-Strike has always been let me just. This is a really succinct. Well, this is a really succinct like version of. Okay.
So people buy skins for cash, then use the skins to place online bets on pro matches. Because there's a liquid market to convert each gun or knife back into cash, laying a bet in skins is essentially the same as betting with real money.
Oh my God!
Jesus,
that's so wild. Yeah.
The suit alleges, in sum, Valve owns the league, sells the casino chips, and receives a piece of the casino's income stream through foreign websites in order to maintain the charade that Valve is not promoting and profiting from online gambling, like a modern-day Captain Renault from Casablanca. The majority of the people in the CSGO gambling economy are teenagers, and under 21 makes Valve's and the other defendants' actions even more unconscionable, the suit alleges.
So these people bet on CS rounds. So it's like you're betting on fights?
Yeah.
It's
just full Vegas.
The visual image of people just throwing ostentatious guns into a pile, then like someone raking them back in, and then
guns manufactured by this arms dealer and former like money launderer.
The visual imagery of Rob is so amazing to me. Of like starts as mild-mannered businessman, then becomes sleazy businessman, then busts out of town in like his convertible blaring music with cash floating away, but it's actually like TF2 hats. No, it's right.
Hats.
And then he's now in his weird South American mansion where he starts running guns.
Yeah.
Right.
But they're like surely like weird hot pink camo
they're like
guns.
encrusted
with like a
Ks and stuff.
Yeah. Some stupid cartoon on them or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like which then are being thrown into fight rings.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny that Counter-Strike feels like it has always been the below the surface Valve game. Like Valve culturally, the Valve that like gamers love is the like it first was the stoic Half-Life Valve, then it was the wacky post Chet and Eric episodic Orange Box TF2 Portal Left 4 Dead Valve, but in the meantime, basically ever since Counter-Strike showed up,
and now it's the just like weird black box like R&D.
Yeah, but like they also still put the lab out. But yeah, they're right. I mean, I think Valve has always had a weird black box R&D element to it, and that
it's true.
That was like when Half-Life came out, and it feels like that just came out of nowhere from a strange obelisk in Seattle, and they're back to that, but they're pumping out weird VR prototypes and weird economic insanity. But ever since they bought Counter-Strike, it feels like that is just sat
running along the side,
under the surface. Yeah. But now, like the iceberg that is Counter-Strike goes so deep compared to what it ever did before, I think. Like, I think the amount of money and just activity that is happening around CSGO is got to just be wild.
It's a $2 billion market. That's insane.
Yeah.
Just for gun skins.
Because, like, above the surface of Valve, you're like, oh, they're renting out the, like, Supersonics old amphitheater to have a Dota event. Yeah. But, like, that is just, like, one penny into the bucket of fucking Counter-Strike guns. You know,
Man,
or like the
that's
swimming
crazy.
pool of Counter-Strike guns. Like that
Yeah.
Dota event is just like one thing that just gets lost, even though that's the public face of this company now. It's really crazy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're like, "Wow, we sold 60,000 Vives or something." And like,
Yeah, right.
and that's
Yeah.
like the public face is VR is the
Right,
future and all that
that's-
stuff. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
just roiling, gun-laden teens gambling.
God. Scorsese would make the lamest movie about this. It would just be oh my God. God, the stupid shot that would just go from like the above ground like VR training lab that would then just like descend into the levels of just like bullshit pink guns
But
and like
it's-
Sweat
oh my
gun
God, yeah.
texturing
Just,
The thing
sweatshop.
about that,
yeah, it's just
the contrast is actually way higher because the top is an actual audience of thousands cheering and an announcer
true.
on huge TV screens. Then
Yeah.
it scrolls down under the earth and it's like the guy in the South Park World of
goes-
Warcraft episode.
Right, that's
just
what
like,
yeah.
"Bleh," clicking a key and then typing and sort of like slouching in a chair as just money is going.
It goes all the way down through all of this, and then goes all the way down through the crust of the earth, through the Earth's core, and then out the other side of the earth to a Chinese warehouse in which
Right.
people are employed
Right.
texturing hundreds of gun models.
true.
Oh, I thought they were there all deflating Dota donkey balloons and pulling the code cards off of them.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
Well.
So I guess all's well that ends well for that guy is he's now a multi-million-dollar gun manufacturer.
What a crazy
Yeah.
everything.
Yes.
God. All right. What a strange company Valve is.
Yeah.
Valve just like enables experiences that are so odd. There's like no comparable.
The Valve metagame,
Model.
though, at this point is just out of control because there's anyway.
That's what I'm talking
It's like
about.
something that an
That's the
AI would
experience.
come
I
up
mean, I don't
with.
mean the experience of playing
Yeah.
their video games.
No.
Those are
Yeah.
like
That's
pretty
fine.
normal at this
Just
point.
a nice
It's just-
game.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is what a computer would decide is the best way to make money. Like, it just feels like something that's just a giant
Yeah, it just
algorithm
does-
at this point. It just however I can do it.
repeated simulations
Yeah.
of every possible thing you could sell until it comes up with the one that
Yeah,
is
that you
more-
would never, as a human, predict.
I do
Like, it would
want to
just
repeat
never-
the last thing that Captain Invictus wrote, though, which is if you are someone who's really attuned to the nuances of the Counter-Strike weapon skins market, I would love for you to write in and actually explain where the attractiveness comes in
Yeah.
and how the price breakdown works, or if it is just like we don't actually know, and this is
strike
like
gold,
it's like the
basically.
old
Yeah.
version of like the pre-graphic designer Google, where they would literally algorithmically test 30 shades of blue on Gmail until they find the one that people like, and then that's what it locks in on. Like, are we just all scattergraphing these things until we just happen to hone in on what people like? And are people running the numbers on that who aren't Valve? Like, there's got to be some
I bet
just
people do.
despicable market
Anything
research.
with a market that big,
Yeah.
there's no way there isn't.
Yep. I want to know, and then I'll make a gun skin.
All right. So Nolan Filter writes, "Hello, friends. Thought you might be interested in this essay, which investigates, quote, the effect of the prospect of a Donald Trump presidency on the behavior of top-level American bridge players. High-level bridge players bid no Trump more often in 2015 than in past years, and the paper posits this is because of the negative stigma associated with a certain
God.
small-fingered racist running for president. Love the show, Nolan."
I hope that's true. I hope that
amazing.
Trump being on people's brains, and specifically no Trump,
Never
leads
Trump.
to people bidding no Trump. Crazy.
I mean, it looks. They have a paper attached, and what's interesting is that different, like they're comparing not only data from year to year, but also different, like country to country, and the effect is more pronounced in the United States, which you'd expect.
Crazy.
because that's local to us. So, and the word is the same, whereas I would imagine
Yeah.
Yeah.
the word for Trump is different in other languages.
Drumpf. Ha! Get it?
Man, that's really fascinating and makes total sense.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. Okay, so this is important. So Joe W writes in about the supposed GamerGate reference that we mentioned in a like addendum to last week's podcast in a that like Nintendo Mario game of some sort. I can't even remember what game it is.
It was a conversation about how you are Mr.
Oh,
Gay.
it was Mario Party 8.
Yes.
Oh, also that. Well, that was the original conversation, but then we like dropped in a thing.
Yeah.
We posited that you are Mr. Gay. Might actually said GamerGate is what happened, and then we got off on a weird jag.
No, I'm talking about when we actually like.
You're talking about our correction. I was providing context for anything at all.
Sure. All right. Fair enough.
Yeah. No. But we talked about the Mario Party 8 thing.
Right. So there was a like pair of screenshots that people pulled from Mario Party 8 that appeared to be a direct reference to GamerGate.
Yeah, there was a reference to Five Guys ish, and also to a something gate within reasonably close proximity in this game, and people were positing that those two things in combination are a reference to GamerGate and Zoe Quinn stuff.
Right. So anyway, Joe W writes in to say
Zoe W.
Yeah. It was actually two separate references to two separate things. One was the Fungi Fun Guys from Mario Party 8. The other was a Watergate reference. They're spaced well apart, but people were stirring up more outrage than necessary by putting them together. This is the statement Nintendo made to Eurogamer. So I'm going to read the statement now. As many have observed, when viewed in its entirety, the Nintendo Treehouse Live segment for Paper Mario Color Splash from E3 includes two jokes separated by commentary and gameplay that have no relation to each other. One joke has to do with Watergate, while the other is a nod to the Fungi Fun Guys from Mario Party 8. It was brought to our attention that these jokes have been spliced together and misconstrued as a crude reference to an online hate campaign. While we typically do not speak on localization matters, we feel the need to confirm that these jokes are not linked in the game and were not intended to be linked. Nintendo firmly rejects the harassment of individuals in any way and was surprised to learn that its gameplay was misinterpreted in this manner. So then Joe, who wrote the email, finishes, just thought I'd point this out since you guys mentioned it in an edit to your podcast, Joe. So there's that. Thanks for writing in about that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What else do we have here? Chris Givens writes, Hey Thumbs, first time emailing, though I've been turning this issue over in my head for a while. As a follower of the game industry, it seems to me that over the last few years, gamers have become more and more restless with perceived flaws in a game. For me, this is obvious in the recent release of Overwatch, where it seems that every player is an expert-level game designer whose opinions are of the highest quality. It feels like everyone took a few rounds to enjoy Overwatch, then went straight to complaining about it. This isn't to say that player feedback isn't useful or that Overwatch is perfect. The recent nerfs, which originated after angst from the player base, have made the game more balanced. It just seems like there's a line between player feedback and everyone wanting to mold a game to their fantasy version, and that players are starting to push that line towards their fantasies. As game designers, do you have any thoughts on this? Am I just a crazy person for thinking this is what's happening? Anyway, thanks for the great podcast. I look to you alone for information about our coming robot overlords. Thanks, Chris.
Oh, man.
My suspicion is that isn't very new.
It's not a new phenomenon, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at all sports and games for people
that's
who
true. You can go
people
way
who
back with sports,
or you can go a month ago when LeBron James complained about officiating in an NBA game, and then a Golden State Warriors player was banned from the game after that. I mean, people complain about officiating after every sports game and every sports tournament, and things happen and don't happen, and it's all political and weird and shitty, and it's just a very natural phenomenon, I think.
It seems like the thing that has changed, though, is through social media and through the internet existing at all, people are able to collect those things into a large enough ball that it feels like it has a gravitational pull that it would not or could be more dismissed when the communication between a player and a developer or players and an official regulating body was more abstracted, right? Like that feels like objectively is not the same as it was before.
Yeah, that's true. Although I think in the case of video games, that has existed just about in some form or another. That's basically existed for as long as online multiplayer has existed to any significant degree.
Yes.
So it's true that in sports, there's sort of the ability to centralize those complaints. And although sports has also always been a local thing, and so one would imagine that because sports is so local, probably local communities have had some version of that to a degree that...
Well, local communities, like towns, have had the ability to gather together and complain about shit that they don't like and make things change forever. And that is a defining shitty thing about everything in real life.
Oh, or sometimes a good thing, but yeah.
Sometimes good, sometimes yeah.
But... Yeah.
Sometimes this can lead to your entire country leaving a global body.
Very true.
It's true. I think this stuff in games goes back pretty far. I I certainly remember it. I mean, this isn't even as old as you can get, but I remember, Halo back in the day, which was a console game, not even a PC game, and so therefore the player base having less access to or less obvious and like sort of a de facto access to the kinds of communities that PC games have just by virtue of the internet being accessed on the same device being used to play the game. I don't even remember how I was aware of those complaints. I just remember being generally aware of them. That stuff just like spreads through player communities.
It seems like as long as the internet has been around, at least, that communication style of people inside of games sending messages to each other from game to game to game until people form some sort of consensus, coupled with community members you just figure out which forums, when it was a lot more forum-based, which ones the developers read and post on, and that's where everything funnels into once you find, like, oh, the guy who made my game reads this.
Yeah.
That also happens in TV in the era of the internet. Like, there was a long period of time where I don't really follow I never followed this stuff much, but I had friends who followed it more. There was a website, it probably still exists, called Television Without Pity, and a lot of genre TV writers read and frequented that forum, and then that forum ended up getting accused of like, from the fan backlash of like that forum's agenda ended up clearly actually hitting the writers of some genre TV shows, and like desired fanships got that from that community, got like people got mad at them for like ruining their TV show or whatever. Like, but it's that same idea of like, find out, that collective voice among different communities then seems to get funneled into wherever you think or know for sure that the creator is actually listening. With Twitter, that makes that all way easier because there's a good chance that person is just on Twitter and you can blast them a message. But it's I don't know. I
mean, I remember that the worst of that I can ever remember was, maybe still is, I don't know. I don't really pay attention to this stuff very much at this point, but Call of Duty has been just one of the most just toxic, just horrible, abusive communities in terms of people giving developers shit about stuff like that. I mean, like, just constant.
It's because the forces behind Call of Duty must feel like it's just an anonymous wall of game developers. But then if you find any one of them, you won't know what they do or what they're actually responsible for, because that's such a like crazy stratified development structure. But you can still yell at them.
Yep. Yeah.
It's interesting.
So, unfortunately, Chris, this probably isn't new or going anywhere anytime soon. But also, I mean, most of it's probably fairly benign. It's only really a problem when it gets...
I bet that one other you're right that the core of it hasn't changed, but I bet that one other sort of exacerbating or mutating factor is that we now are in a time where digital distribution is ubiquitous and there are a bazillion games available to you at any given time. So you have a taste of a lot of things that a lot of different games are doing. Like...
That's true.
And you can bargain hunt. Like, people's games libraries are just larger now than they were 20 years ago, unless you were an outrageous collector. So I think you can sample a lot of things and find things to your taste. But then in the multiplayer space, everyone is only playing a certain subset of games. So you're going to say, I want the thing. I want everyone. I want the community of this huge game to be doing the things that I like in these 15 other small games that I picked up for $3 in a Steam sale. Like, I'm not saying that's a huge contributor, but I think... People know that they can have these other play experiences, and it's not just these are the 3 multiplayer games that everyone's going to play for 3 years, which like Halo or Quake or whatever. Like you are aware of the availability of choice and have a higher chance of being able to be dissatisfied by the one that hits is not the one that you want.
Right.
I don't know if that's true or not, but. And you can't correct by playing on a mod server in Overwatch.
That's also true. Yeah.
All right. So Sean McLean writes, "Hi Thumbs. I'm sure I am and will not be the only one to bring to your attention. A reporter for the Washington Post wrote an article about the first robot to break the first law of robotics. The first robot being a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm." There's got to be a lot of robots who have injured human beings. I don't know. Anyway, whatever.
I think
Continues.
So that rule implies that a robot can identify a human and then can check against that rule and can know what inflicting harm is. Like the assembly line robot that killed someone.
Okay, all right,
whatever.
Fair point. Okay, so that makes more sense. So
well, it's assuming this robot has those powers.
Well, let's see. So the email continues. This robot is programmed in such a way that the designer doesn't even know the probability of it causing harm, only that there are algorithms in place where it is simply a choice. The user places a finger on a designated area, and at that time, the robot decides whether to use its tiny but intimidating arm to launch its said finger and pierce the skin with a needle. While I still wouldn't trust it in front of anyone named John Connor, it doesn't seem to do any major harm short of some hepatitis if the maker gets lazy with his needle replacement. Still, I'm going to go put on the tinfoil hat and see if I can rig up some sort of magnet gun before we start seeing these things self-replicate. Keep casting them pods, I'll need it in the bunker. Sean. So he links to a Washington Post article headlined, "This robot chose to injure the man who built it. Here's why its inventor is pleased." And then there's a video with a thumbnail of a guy's finger with a bleeding little pinprick in it.
Okay.
Put into this robot harness thing. So this, you put your finger in front of this robot and it just decides whether or not it's going to jab you, and then it does or doesn't do it.
Okay.
I'm going to give this like a 3 out of 10 on the actual Terminator, Skynet scale of.
It started when human beings
Okay.
willingly stood in front of Russian roulette robots.
Right. See, that's why. What you just said is why I think it's higher than a 3 out of 10, because this doesn't really say very much about robots. What this says is about humans, that we'll just make robots that hurt you sometimes just because we want to.
Sure.
For no gain.
Yeah.
For there's no function this robot is achieving that it may inadvertently hurt a human, but the benefit is you could weigh it. Nope. This robot only exists to hurt people, or not, but also to hurt them. And someone just made it, and he's pleased about it.
Sure.
So
all right.
I would say that is at least a 7.
Oh, okay.
Possibly an 8.
All right.
Because it just for what it reveals about the human brain and what robots it will build.
I mean, robots only exist because we make them exist. They don't maybe
and fate.
Maybe eventually that won't be true. Maybe eventually they'll make
There's no fate but what
themselves.
you
But
make,
that all goes. These are all decisions we're making. People are doing this shit.
Yeah.
They don't have to be doing it, but
That's
they
true.
are.
That's true.
Yeah.
We do want wacky robots that pierce our flesh. We made them, therefore we want them.
Someone wanted them. That's the thing. Only one person has to make a decision. We don't all have to vote on it.
Only one person has to make the decision to then affix those to quadcopters and send them into everyone's homes.
It's true.
What if
There's
a
no
robot
there's no referendum on the robot apocalypse.
What if a robot knocked on your window and then said, "Would you like me to pierce your flesh?" Yes, no,
Yeah, but
or
if you say no,
try
it's
me
still
is the third one.
sometimes- Again, your answer is a non-binding referendum vote. It is not. It's not a legal contract.
What if a robot knocked on your window and then said, "I'll give you $3 or poke your skin with a needle"? A lot of people would probably take that bet. If the robot's like, "I'm not going to tell you which one it is."
Oh, I see.
There's a
Yeah.
chance that there's a chance
Well,
that
not necessarily
$5. There's a chance I hand you a $5 bill, or that I jab your hand. You have to put your hand in this
Or
lock,
I just leave.
or I leave. No,
Right.
that's not the choice.
But the chance for
No. The chance is either to take that choice or the robot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Step
Right.
1: do I stay or do I go?
But
If I stay,
Yeah.
you tell me that you want to stay by putting your hand in this locking device that I will either place a $5 bill in or extract some of your blood.
Right,
Right.
but what you don't know is that the chance that it will extract your blood is 99 repeating decimal.
No.
He never
what
specified
happened-
what the actual chance was.
This is the more devious one. The more devious is that it starts weighted in favor of giving you a $5 bill, but every time you do it again, the chance becomes higher that
Your blood will be extracted, that you'll be stabbed.
But that happens over time, so it's really difficult for you to tell because maybe you just get an unlucky string of pinpricks. So the dangerous part is when you basically become the hamster in the wheel demanding that your blood gets sucked again and again and again. Just like a hamster does,
What you're describing right
Classic
now is
hamster
just
wheel.
like a YouTube video that would have 50 million views. And everyone would be like, "Oh, this is so entertaining." And then it would knock on their door. That's when it's no longer amusing.
Yep.
I mean, it's never actually amusing.
Well,
it's
This
basically
video
a
for a
Black
chance that the
Mirror
robot
episode.
visits your house.
Yeah.
You could earn $5
Or
or fame when your YouTube video goes up. Mm-hmm. Either way, we will be uploading this to YouTube.
Yeah, right, yeah. from the robots,
Yeah, the robot's
head-mounted camera.
Yeah, that robot just has a camera.
All right, Sean Steffi writes, "Hey Thumbs, I'm catching up on the Planet Coaster discussion from episode 263, and I wanted to share a bit of history. Back in the prime of Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, I was part of a fairly large community around the game. Demand for highly customized personal parks and real-world park recreations was high, so the limited in-game assets were a stumbling block. Frontier had not designed the game around user-created assets, so custom scenery did not take off until a few prominent community members documented the process and created custom importer and exporter. I was only 12 at the time, so this provided me with my first introduction into programming and asset modeling. As a result, preteen me spent most evenings wading through the Blender submenus and trying to figure out geometry optimizations. RCT3 is the most I've ever been involved in a video game community and is what caused my initial trajectory into a programming career. So seeing Planet Coaster being taken to that next level of creative granularity for a new generation is beyond exciting. Are there any interestingly obscure and specific game communities you have all been involved with? And if so, did you have a favorite? Thanks, Sean. P.S. Most of the main sites I was part of are now gone, but amazingly enough, I just found one hub that's still here and converted to discussion of all theme park sims. ShyGuysWorld.com.
Nice.
That's amazing.
Yep.
That's really cool.
Yep.
Do you guys have any obscure game community experiences?
Now, all the ones that I were in were relatively big, like
Yeah.
LucasArts Graphic Adventures and Quake 3 mods. Like that's nothing. I never got into poking at tiny games. I mean, I used to really like. I was a Mac user growing up, and because my family had one, and the way that I learned that you could modify games at all was through ResEdit, which was the Mac resource editing program, where you could just crack open a ton of shareware games, and all of their sprites were all just in the Mac system format, and you could, in like Claris Works or any paint program, basically paste that asset in, including its alpha channel, then paste it back into the game, and you could modify so many Mac games through that. But like, there was never a community around that I knew of. That was just like,
Right.
I'm a kid who ruins all of my games. But I wished that I'd gotten into that stuff. I know, Chris, you were Mario Calculator was your jam.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
We've talked about that a lot of times.
Yeah,
But that was
making Mario levels. Right?
yeah. Graphing calculators, Mario.
The one that was possibly even a smaller community than that for me, that I have also talked about on this podcast, was Chapter Honor, which was a Warhammer 40K mod for Quake 1.
Oh yeah.
And I would be willing to bet that the total player base for that game was maybe a couple hundred people, like total, full entire community, and really a matter of a few dozen people who were regular community mainstays, who at the time I could have probably almost listed by name from memory. That was such a small, tight-knit community. It was really fun to be part of because it didn't feel small. I mean, it didn't feel big either. It just felt like the thing that I play.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't really contribute much to that. I think I contributed a couple sounds. But I wasn't really like
The road to your current profession.
nope. But yeah, I wasn't really.
Hopefully, those were the two sounds.
They were.
Nope.
It was when you fart.
And a
It
guy
was when the
saying
Space
nope.
Marine Terminator farts.
That would fully belong in any Quake mod era game, no matter how serious it.
This one was
purports to
very
be.
Warhammer
self-serious.
game. Yeah.
That would be much more modern Warhammer era, probably. Which
Yeah.
Warhammer's
Post-Blizzard Warhammer?
Warhammer's gone through weird, like, sort of a weird parabola of seriousness. It started out much goofier, got much more self-serious, and sort of got goofy again. I don't actually know where it stands anymore, really, but
Yeah.
Anyway.
Nick?
Oh man, I don't even know. I'm sitting here racking my brain trying to think of a smaller game, but sadly when I was a kid I played just massive games that had huge mod communities like StarCraft or even like Warcraft 2, that era of kind of fucking around and like making wacky things.
Some of those. I mean, Quake was a huge game, right? I'm just talking about a Quake mod. So like, were there any mods you played that were unusually obscure?
I mean, probably. And this is a version of modding, but probably like certain StarCraft maps, right? Like where, they just had wacky rule sets and triggers and things where they would just make up whole games, which is, kind of like what Dota was born out of.
Sure.
But I can remember just like
Absolutely.
stupid things that I would play like as a kid thinking like the Starship Troopers map on StarCraft is really cool, which if I sit here and think about it, that map probably a fairly complicated thing that somebody had compiled and created. Because I remember like, even before Warcraft 3, which is the first game that sort of introduced like hero characters, that stuff was already in StarCraft and people were just already making mods that were these like really complicated things. And again, like stuff like Dota was born out of it. But yeah, probably those sorts of things are probably smaller Half-Life mods. Half-Life was kind of the first game where I felt like I caught the like tail end of Quake stuff, but like the early Half-Life mod scene was sort of the apex of me digging into stuff like that.
I weirdly didn't play a lot of Half-Life mods. I played a lot of Half-Life 1 multiplayer, which nobody played because the mods instantly overtook everything, like Counter-Strike and stuff, which I could never, it was always too hard for me. So I just played stupid Half-Life 1 multiplayer, which was a totally pointless thing, but it was fun, I guess.
can remember playing like the second super early Counter-Strike beta, like probably I think it was the alpha.
Oh yeah,
at that point.
CS beta. The early CS betas were weird.
Yeah,
there was a time in there where there were drivable vehicles.
That was the last one that I played.
Yeah,
that
was weird stuff.
And that was probably not a large community at the time.
Yeah.
I can remember that being really small and feeling like this is
that game was
weird...
a hot mess, but it had the basics of what CS are, though, right?
Yeah,
like it had,
even the maps, a lot of the maps are still the same, but. Yeah, that era was kind of the era I was digging into things actively.
I mostly ignored Half-Life 1 because I was still playing Quake games almost exclusively. But my younger brother and his friends were all about early, like they played TF Classic and Counter-Strike. TF Classic was a Valve-produced mod, though, right? Because they'd already hired Robin Walker at that point.
Yeah, that was an official deal. But yeah.
Which was probably also meant to be a showcase of what you can do with the mod tools, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. Van Cohen, so probably our last email, writes, One morning I arrived home from overnight work and my garage door did not open. This was a little odd, but I went through the door and flipped on the light switch only to discover my power was out. The faint smell of burning plastic emanated from my couch. I pulled the couch away from the wall to reveal a metal wire cat toy had been wedged between the wall outlet and the male end of a laptop power cord, causing a short at the socket. My house's GFCI circuits triggered, cutting off the power, preventing disaster. The outlet was blackened and the cat toy's cloth bits were singed. My Roomba had run out of power in my kitchen. It was unable to escape to its charging dock because the dock had lost power. I reprimanded the Roomba and told it to think twice before trying to overthrow its human overlords. In other words, my Roomba once tried to burn my house down and murder my wife. Love the pods, Van and Austin.
Whoa. Man, the Roomba pushing a thing into an electrical outlet to then burn the house down is crazy.
Yeah.
Good.
Got some misbehaving Roombas. Because we had one last week too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all about those misbehaving Roombas.
All right. Well, that's it, I guess.
If you want to write to us about a robot mishap in your life or the nuances of the Counter-Strike gun economy, please write us at questions@idlethumbs.net. You can send other stuff too, but mostly those things.
Yeah, do whatever you want. Don't listen to Jake.
Chris just woke up.
I mean,
whatever Jake was saying.
Well, thanks for listening to Idle Thumbs. You can find us on the internet at idlethumbspodcast.com, and all the rest of our shows are at idlethumbs.net/shows. We're on Twitter at Idle Thumbs. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/idlethumbs. We're on Twitch now at twitch.tv/idlethumbs. And we didn't mention this, but we got enough subscribers to unlock 2 more chat emotes on our Twitch channel. So we now have Nick, me, and Jake, and Spaff.
Queued up next are Danielle Riendo and Sean Vanneman.
Yes, and even more to come after that.
Yes.
They're really good. They're hilarious. They're by Jon Christensen, probably.
He'll tell us.
Who's a longtime forum member and a talented artist. And if you want to subscribe to our Twitch channel, you can do that. Just if you feel like it. That lets you use those chat emotes, and it gives you a little badge indicating you're a subscriber in the chat channel. And as we get more subscribers, we're able to unlock more of those chat emotes for you to use. Nick, you said you're going to be streaming Dark Souls
today,
June 30th. If you listen to this in time at 7 p.m. Pacific, we'll put notes up on that on the internet. And we may do another stream this weekend. I don't know. We haven't really thought about it yet. Hopefully someone does. Wizard Jam coming eventually, part 2, when the studio's in slightly better shape. And thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
What was that? Something bad happened.